The Metroid series is awesome, man. It includes some of my favorite games ever, whether it be in the original 2D series or the 3D Prime games. But like every great gaming series, it had to start somewhere. While most long-running game series often see substantial improvements, increased polish, and a true honing into the series' strength after a couple of games or so, it's particularly interesting looking at the origin of a series where the initial games are just this old. NES games in particular are pretty fascinating because they really represented a turning point from the Atari games, which were groundbreaking for the time, but by and large lack much substance or replay value, and the majority of games afterward, in that there's a substantial number of games for the system that largely hold up today, or at the very least offer a substantial, if flawed, gaming experience. And really, the first Metroid game definitely fits the profile for the latter. It's a game that was incredibly unique for the time, offering a long and juicy action exploration experience with atmospheric environments, iconic music, and distinctive power-ups, but it certainly got its lion's share of issues. And it's not exactly a game that I'm itching to come back and play either, although I can definitely admire it in many ways. From my initial few runs, I decided I would play the game the good old-fashioned way, without the help of any online map. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that? The game doesn't come with an in-game map. So if you were living in the 1980s, you better work on those memorization skills, or else you get to drawing like some cartographer of the New World, because you'll need some way of remembering where the heck you've been. It starts off well enough. You see Samus, hear the fantastic Brinstar music, and then waltz over to the left to nab the Morph Ball, which really is such a unique power-up concept, so props to the devs for thinking that up. However, it doesn't take too much time running and blasting enemies for you to realize that there's some issues here. First of all, you can't crouch, maybe because Samus skipped leg day or whatever, but that means that a bunch of enemies crawling around Samus just can't be conveniently hit. Then you've got this really annoying near-death beeping sound that just goes on and on like a naggy old hag who's also near death herself, and it is quite aggravating. After facing your inevitable demise for the first time, you see the password screen come up, which is a fairly standard way of continuing games back in the day, so I won't hold that against the crusty old game. As you proceed further in the game, you'll see that there are some long vertical passages, some of which will really eat up your sweet time, but that at least gives you some time to farm for health, which, believe me, we will get back to later. I did notice one other small annoyance here, which was that getting stuck in this mud pit of sorts, and that led to another instance of my demise. But I'm sure that won't become a recurring thing, so no biggie. After restarting in Brinstar again, I'd started getting used to some of the enemy patterns, so running around, shooting baddies, and exploring started to become kind of fun. I got my first E-Tank, which is great, because enemies can make short work of you quickly if you're not careful. Then I got to see some jank with one of the creepy crawlies. That was kind of funny. Then there's this door over here I can't unlock because at this point, I have no idea where the missiles are, but that's okay for now. Getting stuck again, that's okay, not a big deal. Farming for health here again is definitely a bit of a pain, and kind of time consuming. There's this floor I can't get through because I don't have the Morph Ball bombs yet, whatever. And finally, I've located the missiles. Plus I've located the next world, Norfair. And getting stuck again. Yeah, that's kind of annoying, not gonna lie. And I can't go any further here because I need more Morph Ball bombs. Well, that sucks. Around this time, I'd stopped keeping track of my deaths because they were happening a lot. Like, I definitely got the idea that maybe I wasn't supposed to be here yet, because I was getting my hiney handed to me like a holiday rump roast. Samus just glitches through a wall here. Oh, and I need the high jump boots. And I'm dying again. Yeah, I could use a map or something at this point. I could actually keep going through the game like this, lots of trial and error with figuring out where to go and getting the power-ups I need. But it just gets aggravating with the low health drops and the overlong, mazy level design. So I really don't feel particularly bad about whipping out my massive map for some assistance. Anyways, I'll say that in spite of the issues I've been having up until this point, I can actually see the vision of what they had here, with the vast exploration, the teasing of new areas that take new power-ups to reach, and all that good stuff. So, after trying a few mapless runs, my initial maped run, courtesy of Falcon Zero, was definitely a smoother experience. I was able to nab the missiles pretty quickly to open the red doors. Fun fact, I didn't know it took multiple missiles to open these doors when I was playing this on the Game Boy Advanced as a kid, so I remember just turning around at this point, not having any idea what to do. At any rate, then I nabbed the long beam so I can finally shoot further than I can pee. But I gotta say, you can still get messed up really quickly by enemies, mostly because your invincibility frames are pretty pathetic in this game, kinda like in the original Legend of Zelda. Slowdown is also a very regular issue here when multiple enemies are on screen, which is pretty often. Getting stuck is still no fun whatsoever. I'll tell you what though, having this map around is pretty useful because I don't know how else I would have actually known there was a random destructible block right here. Maybe the little flying enemy down there was supposed to be a hint, but there are other instances of that in the game where there are no hidden passages, so I'm just left wondering how a first-time player in the 1980s could have even figured that one out besides hearsay. Another random thing here is that enemies can hit you while you're off-screen, and sometimes there's literally nothing you can do about it. In fact, they hit her so hard, she poots every time! That's right, enemies make Samus IBS act up. That's some next level psychological warfare they're waging on her right here. You want to come to our planet? Fine, you can do that, but we're gonna make poots come at you every time. Samus Aran, more like anus I ran to the bathroom. Anyways, there's actual dead ends in this game, meaning there's quite literally no reason to take multiple paths on the map. In fact, the wicked developers even let me see that dead end from the tube earlier, like they were intentionally trying to seduce me to take a path that deliberately wastes my time. What jerks, man. And again, I don't know how anybody would have known these certain blocks could be busted through, but whatever, I guess. You know, I'm not actually having a bad time here, but boy, the whole game just feels so unrefined and janky. A more accurate title for the game would have been NEStroid. Anyways, after making my way into Norfair, my process going through the game was mostly the same. Follow the map, abuse save and rewind states for when enemies molest me or random stuckness ensues, and witness a bunch of random jank, like machines that randomly don't shoot at me, enemies spazzing out, getting stuck behind statues, seeing 3 missile tanks right next to each other. And did I mention getting stuck? And really, stuckness with a capital S is a genuine integral part of the Janktroid experience. You wouldn't be getting the full experience without it, so you might as well embrace it. Then there's grinding, of course, which takes way too long and isn't even that effective since the enemies you're grinding can still rush your bum. But there's also some neat stuff here, like freezing enemies to reach otherwise unreachable areas, using the screw attack to literally screw enemies, and a bunch of other good stuff too. Come on, come on, come on. Almost got that E-tank. Mother duck! Well, at least this friendly enemy helped me up. That's nice of him. Holy slowdown. Not gonna lie, Norfair's level design is kind of a pain, with long hallways that have dead ends that you have to backtrack through. Seriously, look at the map here. It took me nearly 10 minutes to navigate my way back up from this deep, heinous crack in Norfair. And they could have just put a one-way door or something here to skip all that. Come on, man. Having finally made my way to Ridley Scott's lair, I gotta say, this area is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's still some BS here, like cheap fake floors, and a cruelly seductive missile tempting me from another end of the map. But it's definitely not as twisty and frustrating to navigate as Norfair. Plus, I got this neat-looking double kill, which raised my self-esteem to previously unforeseen heights. But man, after all this build-up, Ridley turns out to be a real punk. And I'm not really complaining if I'm honest, because he gives you like a bajillion missiles anyways. But it's worth mentioning that he's a weakly little weasel. On the way back up, I decided to make a detour to nab a few more items. But I didn't realize that this giant shaft here just has no platforms whatsoever, so I'm pretty sure I came all that way for nothing. But after that unfortunate disappointment, I made my way out of the Ridley Pan and into the North Fire, as they say. Also, I didn't realize this at first, but apparently you're technically supposed to face Kraid before Ridley. When I looked at the map though, and I thought about crossing back and forth between Brinstar and Norfair multiple times, I just said screw attack that, man. That being said, credit to the developers here. You can make your way through Norfair to Brinstar pretty quickly if you know where you're going. And after coming back to the relatively easy Brinstar after all this time, I gotta say, it really feels good ripping into enemies with your upgraded beams and the Ebenezer Scrooge attack. But after another round of very, very long vertical shafts, I finally nabbed myself the Various suit, and sweet Jimmy Johns, you finally take less damage from getting stuck in the doo-doo mud. Hallelujah! I finally found something to confront the mighty enemy of stuckness. And I'm guessing I'd need the ice beam for this part. Alright, whatever, I'll come back to it. Maybe, maybe not. Now I've finally made my way to Kraid's lair, and I gotta say, I absolutely love the music here. There's an awesome remixed version of it by Dracula 9 Anti-Chapel as well, so I would check that out, as it's definitely worth a couple dozen listens. There's this funny little enemy with giant eyeballs here. I kinda like him. I'll call him Jeffrey. But still, the level design is kinda whack here. Like, there's this whole section in the upper right of Kraid that loops over itself with absolutely no pickups or incentive of any time to even go there. So, I didn't. Still, getting to Kraid didn't actually take too much trouble, even if enemies at this point in the game are causing substantial damage. But boy, does Kraid himself put up a fight. And it's actually a pretty fair challenge. I beat him with almost no health left here, so that was a great feeling. But fortunately for me, there was a lovely E-tank in the room just to refill my... Okay, so it's a bit of a pain to get to. No surprises there, honestly. But as I made my way back up, I faced dire situations, like a set of random tempting red blocks that solely exist to trick you into thinking there's a hidden secret, when diabolically, there's absolutely nothing there at all. Then they surround you with Jeffreys. Oh, curse you, Jeffrey. But after all this, I made one last trip through Brinstar again, and fortunately I just so happened to remember that I would need the ice beam for the final section of the game, or else I'd be Scrooged. Now, I do like that you have to lure an enemy here to use as a platform to nab this E-tank, but how would I have known that there was one right here without a guide? I guess I just have to gossip with other kids in the playground or something, maybe in exchange for a Pez dispenser or something else valuable. Different times, I guess. Also, I noticed afterwards that in spite of there being 9-ish energy tanks in the game, you can only obtain a maximum of 6, which is just weird. But after one final massive vertical shaft, I made my way to the final area of the game. We faced all kinds of dangers, fears, and monstrosities to get here. Creepy crawlies, dive-bombing bat things, Jeffreys, annoying sounds, IBS, lag and slowdown, stuckness itself, and all other manner of jank. But we finally arrived at our final destination, Torian. There is genuine tension here in dealing with the eponymous Metroids, who are all too eager to literally suck the life out of you. But if you pace yourself well and only face one at a time, they're not too hard to dispatch. Just don't get impatient or they might suck you. But suddenly, the music takes on a malevolent, foreboding air as you're pelted with laser balls from every direction. And as you proceed further past the electrical barriers, you come face to face with the mastermind of the wicked Metroid scheme. Daddy Jeffrey, Mother Brain. While you dance madly to avoid the omnipresent laser balls and shoot missiles wildly at Mother Brain's tank, the twisted creature begins to pulsate and throb, indicating that she's near death. And just as you think she may have beaten you down with the sheer multitude of her many balls, But it's not over yet. It's the final countdown, and you desperately escape through, of course, a long vertical shaft, listening to some daggone fine music along the way. But this is short work for you at this point, because the game has trained you through sheer repetition to become a master of vertical hallways. And then, you've made it. Mission complete and escape successful. And shock of all shocks, Samus is a female woman. And with the hotness itself revealed, you finally get an explanation as for why all the enemies have been chasing your tail the whole time. Because you are a very fine young lady, and these are some incel creeps. Plus, if you complete the game faster, Samus will take off even more clothing for you, which you could reasonably argue lessens the impact of introducing a strong female protagonist into gaming. But, sometimes you need to bust a few nuts, or eggs, to make an omelet, as they say. So, after a few mapless and maped runs, what do I think of Metroid? Well, in spite of the substantial amount of questionable design choices, stuckness, and general jankiness, I actually didn't have a bad time playing through it, with a map in hand at least. And while I definitely prefer the later games in the series, including its masterful remake Metroid Zero Mission, which I am planning on reviewing soon, I could actually see myself coming back to it from time to time, because there's a good game here buried inside a bunch of the issues. And as long as you kinda know the best way to play it, you can actually have a good time with it. Unlike games like Super Mario Bros. Or the Mega Man games, or even a Konami-coded Contra, Metroid just hasn't aged the best, and it's not a game that's easy to pick up and play. In fact, a few years ago, I would have said that it's not a very good game, and given the amount of time I've dedicated here to discussing its flaws, that's not inherently a wrong view. But I've come to deeply appreciate the template it laid down with its action exploration gameplay, and I genuinely enjoy its unique upgrades, environmental atmosphere, and banger tunes. And it especially helps that now that we see where the template has gone, and we've seen how much the sequels have accomplished, that we can look back and say, hey, this really started something grand. So, while Metroid for the NES still isn't a game that I love, it has gained my respect, and that is something that I'm happy about. Thanks for watching, and until the next mission, I'll see you guys later. Game Boy games are very interesting, to say the least. In terms of what the technology itself accomplished back in the day, it really was something else. It practically created the portable gaming market, a sector of the video game industry that Nintendo has consistently dominated to this very day. And more importantly, it taught us kids to hide our systems under the blanket and turn the volume down real low when we heard any threatening footsteps coming our way. But in terms of the quality of the games, I have a bit of a bone to pick with the console, mostly because I think a lot of the games for the system can basically be summed up as, it's like the NES version, only not quite as good. Whether it's direct ports of NES games or weirdly remixed versions of NES games, like with a half dozen Mega Man games for the console, I've just usually found this to be the case. No hate for the system intended, it's just the impression most of the games leave with me. So, what's the point of this long preamble? You don't even need to ask, cause I'll tell you for free. Today, we're looking at Metroid II, Return of Samus, and we're gonna see if this view of mine holds up, or if this 8-bit portable adventure punches above its weight class. So let's space jump right in. Oh, and just for reference, I did use an online map for this one, because I did not feel like going through a mapless run again after my experience with NEStroid. Shout out to Shane Carter, Falcon Zero, and Zarek for providing some invaluable map resources on that front. The first thing I noticed when going to the title screen is that the music here is a little more atmospheric, you could say. There are a lot more eerie bleeps and bloops here to try to affect your psyche. It goes along well with the spooky vomit green color the original Game Boy was blessed with. But then you start up the game, and this catchy overworld music plays, and Samus has clearly taken some space parkour classes or something, because she's considerably more maneuverable here. She can run, jump, and shoot like before, but now she can crouch, think juicy thighs above, and not only can she shoot up, she can shoot down. Wow. Just wow. Granted, the controls are arguably a little more sluggish here, because it was clearly defined in the Game Boy programming requirements book that your game run no faster than 10 frames per second at any given time. But even so, it feels nice to have more control over Samus here. And right over here. Could it be? Oh, my lucky stars! A save station. Sweet, sweet technology at work right here. No more passwords here, Ridley Scott. No 5 uppercase, 4 lowercase, 3-digit, 2 special character, 1 kidney donation required password here. You want to play Metroid 2? Just smack that sucker in, press the on button, click continue, and away you go. But what exactly is this particular entry about? Well, double-digit IQ'd players may have noticed at this point that there's this little counter at the bottom right corner of the screen. And as you come across your first Metroid and witness it fangoriously transform into an Alpha Metroid, you'll immediately understand why.
I say, it's Metroid hunting season, boys, and you're out to bag your limit for some nice Thanksgiving Met turkey.
It's a true extermination mission if ever there has been one, which is a surprisingly dark concept to see in a Nintendo game. But unfortunately for this Alpha, Samus herself is a Sigma, so she wipes the dust with him after a few measly missiles. Then you hear a random earthquake, because we all know killing creatures will cause the Earth to have a seismic reaction. And you get treated to both energy and missile recharge stations. Wow, this game has it all. Really, it actually is very impressive to see all of these quality of life features in an 8-bit title, especially when the original Metroid on NES lacked all of these. So props to the devs for that. I am NEStroid! But now we make our way lower, as the killing of enough Metroids causes the lava level to lower throughout the game. Again, I'm not going to question the physics of that. It is what it is. From this point on, the gameplay is pretty familiar to the NES title. You know, you find places where you can't go yet because you need a new weapon or ability, then you find those new abilities, work your way around, and fight different enemies. What the heck is that? It's supposed to be some kind of bat thing, I think. But it looks like somebody drew the sprite for it while suffering from the bubonic plague. Or maybe the bat has the bubonic plague, I guess? I don't know, man. Same kind of thing with these turrets, man. I'm guessing it's just because of the color palette and size constraints. But some of these enemies look admittedly off. A visual touch that I do like, though, is that you see these abandoned Metroid skins laying around, kind of like snake skins, indicating the area where they're nearby. It's a neat little piece of visual storytelling that I can appreciate. Plus, there's this neat new ability called the Spider Ball that lets you climb up pretty much any surface. If you can get it to work right. Come on, stick! This is basically Metroid 2's version of stuckness. It's definitely preferable to Metroid 1's horrible pits, but it's still kind of a consistent pain nonetheless. But after casually decimating the species on this part of the planet, we make our way down further, and there's a literal enemy dedicated to getting you stuck. Not damaging you, not hurting you, poisoning you, just getting you stuck. Of course, it's Metroid. One issue I started noticing here is that the Game Boy's small screen size makes it so that you can't always see enemies in front of you until they're right up on you. That's about as fun as getting a call about your car's extended warranty. Another note here is that the music is a little more forgettable in these areas. You know, there's bleeps and bloops and decent indoor tunes, but nothing that really sticks in the brain like the Brinstar or Kraid themes. And what kind of upgrade is this? What the upgrade is chasing me? Oh. Alright, not gonna lie, that completely threw me off the first time I went through. But it's not actually that difficult. Plus, beagle-eyed gamers may recognize it as the first major boss from Metroid Fusion. So, neat callback to this game, I guess. But then we get the Spring Ball, which is a nice ability that lets your balls bounce all around. Now, I think this might just be because I was playing with analog sticks on the Switch 2, but I sometimes found it tricky to get into Morph Ball form. Like, it really did look like Samus was just taking a massive dump every other time I tried to do that. Yet even more proof that my poor girl suffers from IBS. Be strong, girl. Be strong. Then Samus gets the black man boots so she can jump really high and dunk on anybody, and she can impress all 24 of the people who watch the WNBA. And thank goodness for this E-Tank, because this near-death beeping sound is just about as naggingly annoying as ever. Yes, Mom, I'll go to the nearest recharge station before I commit my next genocide. Sheesh! But then I got the Varia suit, and not only did it come with this neat suit transformation sequence, but it actually lets me run faster too. It's a genius way to work around the Game Boy lag requirements that I laid out earlier. But just as we're starting to get overconfident and cocky, the Metroids are evolving again. I don't know what kind of Ash Ketchum jerk is going around and training these guys, but they gotta either cut that crap out or just sign the papers to adopt all these Metroids, because I am not keeping these pugly looking sons of guns as pets. Not in my galaxy, Ashhole. But truthfully, the Gamma Metroids aren't too much of a pain either, just a little more missile spongy than before. An interesting thing to note at this point is that the structure of the game is less like a traditional Metroidvania where you go back and forth across various points in an interconnected map, and it's more linear and level structured, where you visit an often fairly large sub-area, wipe out all the enemies or Metroids in that area, and then work your way down the main path until you hit the next sub-area. It's an interesting concept for progression. I don't prefer it to a traditional interconnected map system, but it's a neat idea, and it makes the map fairly easy to follow even if you're getting lost in one of the larger sub-areas due to everything being a mandatory Taco Bell diarrhea green color. Next up, we got the space jump, which is tricky to get a hold of, if I'm honest. It feels kind of like swimming in gravy. It's everything I ever wanted, but more difficult than you might hope at the same time. But it's a neat and creative traversal tool in theory, much like the spider ball is. Then at this point, they start giving you a selection of different beams you can pick and choose from, like it's a Space McDonald's drive-thru or something, and each option has its own pros and cons. I was a fan of the wave beam myself, as it's both very powerful, and it can also pierce enemy armor. One neat trick here is if an enemy tries to knock you down a shaft, try jumping immediately after getting hit. I'm guessing Samus took lessons from Mario here because she can hop off enemy heads like it's nobody's business. There's this clever section here where you have to crawl down a Metroid hole to reach the Metroid on the other side. I kinda liked that. But after completing this section, the next couple of sections were oddly short, with only 1 or 2 Metroids to kill before moving on. I was okay with that because I'd been in plenty of larger sub-areas at this point, and as anybody who's been in a crowded sub-area of New York knows, spend too much time there and you might just end up trying to turn into a morph ball so that you can crawl your way out of there. This is kind of metarded. And why does this rock look so pixelated in an already pixelated game? Yeah, whatever. We finally get to see another Metroid type though, the Catherine Zeta Metroids. And these ones are a real pain, mostly because their weak spots take effort to reach, and they're just super bullet spongy in general. I never really minded facing the alphas or gammas, but I just groaned any time I had to face any of these Zeta freaks. And why is this hallway so long? I'll say this though, in spite of limited graphics, they actually do swap up the environments visually. Just look at these lovely bubbles! They look bouncy. Very nice. Plus I got the Scrooge attack, and that's just as fun to use as ever. Ah, man, it's another... Wait, there's another evolution after this? Daggone it, Ash. Gotta catch 'em all, huh? More like gotta kill 'em all. Yeah, you take that, you missing link looking dude. You know, I actually find the Omegas slightly easier to face than the Catherine Zetas, because at least I can hit them fairly consistently due to their larger weak points. But after giving some killer shrimp the Cajun seasoning southern fried treatment, I noticed the music started getting more foreboding and creepy. Another Omega Metroid? Oh, come on, man. My health is too low for this. I am not backtracking all the way just for an energy recharge. I've got a rewind feature here, and I'm not afraid to use it. Come on, boy. Let's bring it on. Alright, I finally did it. It took a long time and dozens of rewinds, but I finally proved that Metroid who's boss. I needed to prove that they can't just get away with anything. But now that I've proved my point, it's time to make our way down to the final area of the game and wipe out the last remaining Metroid. As if to scare you away, the Chozo statue here has been decapitated by some dark, powerful force. The music grows ever more creepy and foreboding, and we're given an ice beam just like in the ending of the OG game, so we know it's about to go down. Wait. What? The number of Metroids increased? Well, something in this nest is clearly Catholic, because it's popping out babies like it wants the child credit tax deductible. The music gets even more intense as we blast our way through the newly spawned Metroids. And then you hear, not music, but sounds. And as we fall down one final shaft, we see Big Mama herself. And she is not impressed with your babysitting capabilities. She stretches her neck like a giraffe just to get a little nibble now and again when she gets peckish. And she clearly had Taco Bell as well, because she vomits some green-colored balls at you. Though I guess everything here is vomit-colored, but, whatever. The most effective way to kill her is actually blast her in the mouth, then crawl inside and bomb her belly. That is both very gruesome and very creative. Apparently everything in this universe has serious digestive issues, but I digress. After a very intense fight, the Metroid Queen's jaw drops. Literally. And she delicately fades into nothingness, like a gentle fart in the breeze. But it's not over yet! We need to escape the... wrong game. Sorry about that. The series kind of gave me PTSD. Actually, believe it or not, the music here is quite peaceful and even very hopeful, and we make our way up. But there's one Metroid egg left to dispatch, and it's actually kinda cute. It follows me around like a baby, being very helpful in gobbling up this blocky poo stuff that's blocking my path. And it clearly sees me as its mother figure, even though I definitely just decimated its entire species. It's a surprisingly wholesome way to end this rather bleak genocide mission, as me and my new buddy board the ship, ending the game. And pleasant surprise, I actually got the best ending. I'm just, gonna stare at the screen for a minute here. Don't mind me. That's good stuff. So, what do I think of Metroid II? Does it fall victim to the Game Boy inferiority curse, or does it stand tall alongside its NES prequel? Well, like its predecessor, it's not a perfect game. Whereas the original Metroid largely suffered from jank and unfair design, Metroid II has some issues with a repetitive structure, some rather lackluster music at times, and some hardware-related issues like screen crunch, difficulty telling environments apart, and occasionally sluggish controls. That being said, Metroid II actually makes a lot of substantial improvements on the original title, including quality of life features like save and energy recharge stations, greater maneuverability, some neat new abilities, and better storytelling. It's a very ambitious title for the system, and I'd say it holds its own in that regard. Personally, I preferred playing through the first game, but that's mostly due to my preference for its overall structure and layout. If somebody said they preferred Metroid 2, and there are plenty of people who do, then I don't think they're wrong in that preference, because Return of Samus has a whole lot to offer on its own merits. These are both imperfect, but very ambitious and creative games, and very, very soon, I'll be reviewing the Omega Metroid of a game that perfected the formula that these Alpha and Gamma games spawned, or evolved into. I'm trying to say that I'm going to review Super Metroid, guys. Anyways, I might also review the 3DS remake of the game at some point. I'm not in a rush to do that, but I'm certainly open to doing so further down the line. But for now, thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next mission, I'll see you later. I first played Super Metroid around Christmas time during my 13th year of life outside the womb. I distinctly remember playing the game in between rounds of setting up the very fake Christmas tree with lights, ribbons, and all different ornaments. Even if I don't remember the experience quite as strongly as I do from my first playthrough of Ocarina of Time just a year or so prior, it still left a very strong impression on me. I can still feel little me's heartbeat begin to quicken as the game turns on, and foreboding intro music plays while witnessing the bodies of slain scientists, and the camera settles in on a single baby Metroid. While I have pretty tough power suit armor for horror-oriented media these days, it really was a different experience when I was just a teeny little teen. The terror of a monstrous foe suddenly appearing, the mind-blowing thrill of finally discovering how to proceed after hours of searching high and low, and the sense of foreboding dread that Meridia's music instilled in me are all feelings I'll never forget. Unless I get dementia or something. Then I'll forget everything. Of course, that was before I even knew that Super Metroid was considered a masterpiece. But even without that knowledge, I knew that there was something special about it. Kind of like a kid who sips their dad's whiskey while they're not looking. You can tell that there's something special about it, even if you're not quite sure what at the time. Rightly heralded for its indescribable atmosphere, strong visual storytelling, and fantastic exploration-based gameplay, the game took on a second life in the speedrunning community, and is still sped-run competitively to this very day. But separated from the hype, does Super Metroid still hold up as a legend today? Are there substantial flaws that are overlooked by zealous legions of fans who worship the very ground that Samus speed boosts over? And if so, how much do those flaws actually affect the sense of immersion and the overall gaming experience? And most importantly, is 16-bit Samus still as attractive as she was back in 1994, over 30 years ago? Well, let's dive in and find out. Not that you need it, but if you want a comprehensive map in case you missed any goodies, Falcon Zero once again has you covered. He's a legend for doing this stuff, so go send him a free cookie or visit his house or something. Might want to give him a call before you do the latter thing, though.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
The introduction to this game is just iconic. Samus deserves to get an A+ in her English classes because the way she concisely sums up the events of the past games leading up to the current day is just perfect, and the atmosphere and music here is absolutely on point. My summary of her summary? Samus kills the big bad space pirates on ZBs, eradicates the sucky Metroids on their home world, spares a Metroid baby, hands over the baby to some scientists, and then receives a distress beacon from them after leaving. And since Samus gets an A+ for her English class, I deserve an A++ for summarizing her summary even more summarily. But now we blast off to the space colony and get treated to new controls like sprinting and diagonal shooting, and witness the dead scientists from the title screen. But this time, the baby Metroid that we had rescued, spared from SR-388, is nowhere to be seen. That's great environmental storytelling. But fortunately, the baby's right over here, and... Oh! Great Ridley Scott! Suddenly I'm locked into a fight with this grumpy dragon, but after taking enough of a beating, he escapes with Baby Troid, leaving me to escape from the space colony's impending self-destruction, with debris knocking Samus about and the colony's instability causing it to shift side to side. And after narrowly escaping, we follow Ridley back down to Zebes. Zebes? Where we first face the space pirates. We land on the planet's ominous surface as neat rain and lightning effects pepper the screen. Then I just casually use the game's broken wall jump move to get over the cliff, just for fun, though this big green door prevents me from cheating any further. As you proceed downwards into the depths of the planet, you can't help but notice that, save for a few harmless creatures scattering as you enter, you're completely alone. Then we navigate back down the very escape route we took after fighting Mother Brain, and everything looks worn down, decayed, dusty. As I made my way down, I just couldn't help but admire the devotion that went into recreating the environments and level design from Metroid for the NES. But just as I started feeling nice and cozy nabbing the morph ball from its exact location in NEStroid, a creepy eye busted out and watched me. That's some sick invasion of privacy right there. As we make our way up after grabbing some missiles, it becomes abundantly clear that this creepy eye was undoubtedly a security camera, because the world has come alive with space pirate grunts, which, until this point, we had never actually seen before. Everything else on the planet decides to wake up and greet you too, because these are some real hospitable folks that just want to touch you! And to work this little station right here, I stick my arm cannon into the device, and holy moly, an actual map to look at! We have come a long way, friends. I can only imagine this is how the ancient folks of yesterday felt when using GPS for the first time. Well, to be fair, they probably preferred to whip out the old atlas instead, or maybe they used tree markers or something. I don't know. But still, it's amazing to have a map in an exploration game. That's really the main complaint I had in the last couple of games, so it's wonderful to see that resolved here. Ooh, morph ball bombs. Now I can finally break some blocks. Just gotta leave the room and, what? Oh man, this Chozo statue forgot its job, because it's chasing me down like the IRS coming after my taxes. And talk about horror, man. This thing's head gets blown straight off. That's just gnarly. But thankfully, save and recharge stations are mainstays from this point onward, so we can explore in peace. Just gotta make sure that we're in the clear here. Stay. But as we use the morph ball bombs to make our way west, we get treated to an E-tank and some lovely looking mushrooms. Plus, the bosses get spoiled by these giant statues that the space pirates presumably make homage to. How much space gold did it take to make these anyways? No wonder these guys have to ravage different planets for booty. They're getting taxed up the wazoo for this gold statue. But now we make our way down to the plant-filled depths of Brinstar, which has a rockin' tune. Say what you will about the space pirates, but they clearly care about the environment because there's plants galore over here. I wonder if some poor space pirates are stuck with the duties of watering all these things. Not much glory there, but at least your odds of getting blasted in the face by Samus Aran are exponentially decreased that way. So maybe it's the right career choice after all. I was wondering if Jeffrey might show up. He's just bopping to the music. Now, I don't have to do this, but I wanted to try a sequence break, so I used the mock ball trick to maintain my momentum and speed past these closing gates, allowing me to collect a bunch of nice booty, including an early super missile. It knocked Jeffrey off the ceiling. I like the little falling petals here. It's a delicate little touch on this pretty unforgiving planet. The plant boss here is pretty spooky, but I can always just awkwardly leave since I have the super missile already. That's pretty funny. Still, this big fella isn't too hard to avoid, and you can really just not move for the most part, and you'll be okay. A nice touch here, though, is that the whole surrounding planty area wilts when it dies. I'm wilting! Wilting! Oh, that's a Mega Man reference. Never mind.
More Jeffries!
You know, you can actually wall jump up this area to sequence break as well, but I decided to mostly stick to the standard experience here, so I left it alone. It's not because I couldn't do it, of course.
That's not the reason. No, sir.
Huh. There's a bunch of water surrounding this large glass vestibule. I'm sure I won't come back here later. Now, in spite of me just stating that I wouldn't sequence break much, I decided to postpone my trek to Norfair by using a wall jump to reach this spooky giant-mouthed creature. As I make my way further, the music gets more menacing, and... What's this? Oh! Are those the trademarked Kraid spikes? And projectilizing these spikes is none other than... Kraid Jr.? Yeah. Little bro's never even heard of Arm Day. But that's not the big baddie here. As I proceed further and come across the corpse of a Federation Marine. He must have been forced to play Federation Force. That poor soul. And in this room...
Holy sh!
Oh boy, Papa Crate is one big lug with some painful looking belly spikes, probably caused by severe indigestion. You gotta shoot this guy in his open mouth to take him down. His sudden appearance in grotesque form scared the little crap out of me when I first played this, I'll tell you what. But now I can finally nab the iconic orange Varia suit, and while in morph ball form, I could easily pass for a fresh, sumptuous California Clementine. No wonder Crate opened up his mouth. Big bro just wanted his daily vitamin C. Since I got my drippy new suit, I can make my way through the superheated, sweltering air of Norfair without issue, where I obtain the Black Man jumping boots, see some bouncy bubbles, and use my cheaty wall jump maneuver to sequence break and get the speed booster early, which really is such a creative ability. I mean, it basically turns you into Samus the Hedgehog, except you just annihilate everything in your way. It's like if Shaquille O'Neal ran as fast as a cheetah. But then I went around, picked up the ice beam, froze some Mexican jumping beans, and finally got the precious power bomb, which lets me open up those orange doors that have been seductively teasing me for the last hour. Now, perhaps against my best judgment, I decided to forego getting the grapple beam for now, since that would mean venturing further into Norfair, and I decided to try my luck returning to the surface, where, after an embarrassing number of attempts, I finally managed to use the Shine Spark, which is an extension of the Speed Booster ability, to thrust myself across the water chasms into the wrecked ship, which would have normally required the aforementioned grapple beam to reach. The music outside of the ship is awesome and gives the sense of a brave and powerful army, victoriously traversing the stars to free the universe of the space pirate menace. But inside the ship, there's no victory to be found. Only death. And stanky dankness. Ghostly apparitions haunt the halls, presumably the souls of the deceased Federation crew. To be a bit of a nerd here for a second, I love the synchronicity between the environment and gameplay here. Certain doors can't be entered because there's no electricity, and even the save station doesn't work, which is plain unnerving because I got this far and I really don't want to screw up and die here. That would be like cooking the most perfect cake in the world, but 1 minute before it's finished baking, a meteorite crashes into your house. Then a Metroid crawls out and eats the cake. And then it eats you. As you explore further down the ship, you eventually wind up being surrounded by floating fireballs, and the horrific Phantoon suddenly appears. Again, this guy scared the crap out of me as a kid. But while I'm not terrified this time around, it's still super intense because the fight itself is fairly challenging, and my health is super low as is. Thankfully, my reserve tanks were there to back me up, otherwise I would have needed Luigi to come around and vacuum this guy up for me. Though I guess that's kind of presuming that he does non-mansion residential work. I don't know. I need his business card. Apparently old Winnie the Phantoon was responsible for the power going out, because now everything comes alive, including harmful electricity, awkward and slightly annoying wobbly butts, and some massive balls. And now the save station works, thank goodness. But it's not just the ghosts here who are haunting me, as my lack of grapple beam is doing me no favors whatsoever. I'll just try to power my way through it. Wow, I somehow managed to actually do that, with literally 1 HP left. Firmly grasp it! Fortunately, this friendly Chozo statue gently walked me through the rest of that death pit. Very slowly. Still, that's helping me to heal from the trauma of his brother who tried to kill me earlier. This leads me to another suit upgrade, the pretty pink pancake suit, gravity suit. Which is convenient because the terrain is getting moister by the minute, which leads into our next main area. Meridia. There's plenty of dirt, water, and seaweed over here, but no actual weed, unfortunately, so I'll just have to find the guy behind the grocery store to handle that for me. What the? Kevin Spacey just dragged me down here. Ah, crap, now I gotta go back up. Oh no. Oh no. No, it's stuckness! My dreaded arch nemesis from NEStroid has returned in full force. Now, this little powerbomb trick absolutely blew my mind when I was a kid.
You know, I'm pretty sure I discovered that by complete accident, and my jaw just absolutely dropped when it happened.
The haunting Meridia theme, accompanied with the water effects and Samus's underwater breathing, create an indescribable feeling of hopeless isolation. The Teenage Mutant Underwater Turtles are trying to help me reach this E-Tank, but it looks like I need... the grapple beam. Of course. I really thought I was stuck here too, but fortunately I figured out you could Shine Spark diagonally, so that was great. Come to think of it, I could have Shine Spark to get that E-Tank earlier. There's this random dead end with absolutely nothing here. Yet another unfortunate reminder of NEStroid. What the... snail kickball? I'd say that's animal abuse, but let's be real. They're snails. Nobody cares about them. I don't care about them. And the French eat them anyways, so why not use them for sport? Oh, and there's Metroids here. I thought we killed them all, though. I guess maybe they cloned baby Metroid to make more? But after some other one-way paths, dead ends, and plenty of stuckness, I blasted through this weird lizard hole hopper and this ungodly crustaceous creature, who had surprisingly friendly children, nabbed a space jump, then grabbed a couple of other items so I could get the heck out of there.
I hate Meridia, man. Chlamydia is a much more fitting name. I'd rather contract chlamydia than play through Meridia. I'd rather have to do a 100-mile sprint down a broken Lego road than have to go through it again. If aliens from outer space came and played this, they'd know it's terrible. If people from isolated islands with no sense of math or language came down and played it, they would know it's terrible too. I would rather have to down 50 burritos in 5 minutes and then have to hold my poop for the next 50 hours than have to go through again. I would rather make out with a beehive than have to do it again. I'd rather have to fill in my driveway with kidney stones than play through it again. Screw Meridia.
Well, at least I'm finally done with it. Never going back there again. Now I just need to get back to Norfair.
No. No, please no. No, it's faster to go through Meridia than it is going through Criteria and Brinstar.
Okay, well, now I'm done with Meridia for good. No more stuckness. No more. Happy thoughts, happy thoughts. But now that I'm through it for good, I'm finally at peace.
What's this?
The last dish is in the cabinet. The wife is at peace.
That was a close one.
Finally, sweet, sweet civilization. At least compared to Meridia. I went on spelunking this area before getting hit with a wild crocomire that you have to push off the ledge. And not only does this thing suffer a gruesome end, this bro straight up jump scares you after it dies. I don't know how exactly it managed to get over there, but props to it for the effort. After some further Shine Spark trickery, I finally got the grapple beam, which is admittedly pretty fun to use. And with that, I make my way to Lower Norfair, which has music so awesome, even these creatures can't help but dance to it. Firmly grasp it! Boy though, this golden Chozo statue takes no prisoners, and it straight up sidesteps your regular missiles and throws your super missiles right back at you like he's John Wick or Kirby or something. But then you get the Scrooge attack, which is just as fun as ever, with enemies ripe for the screwing. I like how some space pirates just look around all confused like it's the first day of school. Oh, and another angry mouth. Metroid Proverb 31 states, "Where an angry mouth lies, there shall a pathway be." And so it is. Amen. Gotta deal with these karate space pirates, aka the Bruce Lee bros. Man, this music has clearly hyped up every creature here, and I can't blame them. Last time this music came on, I got so hyped up that I straight up murdered an old lady sitting next to me. Police weren't too happy, but that's a story for another day. And now, it's time to face off against my arch nemesis. Stuckness. Ridley. And this guy's a heck of a missile sponge. I got him, come on. Ooh!
Crap!
Well, I finally beat him with barely any HP left, but now we can finally save the... Ooh. No baby Metroid here. I'm sure it'll show up somewhere. You know, like a lost dog, or car keys, or a phone. Or an actual baby. Now that all the Guardians have been beaten to an orange juice pulp, I made my way back through Norfair, Brinstar, and Criteria. It felt really empowering demolishing everything from the early game with the screw attack. A neat quirk here is these little animals hiding in the depths of Brinstar that serve as your senseis for the Shine Spark and wall jump abilities. Of course, I'm already a master at both, but I do remember the wall jump tutorial being absolutely vital to me as a kid, so it's much appreciated. After using the Shine Spark to nab a few extra goodies though, it was time to head down to meet the Riverman and Torian. The locks on each Guardian statue were removed one by one, opening the path below. Take your time. The music here churns and bubbles like the lava within, or like your stomach after a taco milkshake. And now it's time for a good old Metroid genocide again, boys, and super missiles definitely do the trick real nice. But as we venture further, we come across decayed, lifeless enemy corpses that shrivel up on contact, as though they've had the life sucked right out of them. And then... Baby Metroid's back, but she's returned as a big boss baby, and it's her feeding time. And yet, after taking a nice munch from you, it seems to realize that you're none other than Mammy Sammy. And it stops at literally the last second. After a last-minute energy and missile refill, we make our way to Mama Brain herself, avoiding laser balls, blasting past glass barriers, and really just fighting her the same way we did before, which isn't too hard. And with that, we've beaten the game! Wait, what? What is that?! Its body looks like a fleshy, decayed, robotic chicken.
That's disgusting!
Alright, gotta fight. Okay, alright, I think we're doing pretty good here, actually. That murdered my health bar. I can't move. Oh crap, did I do something wrong? Shoot. I am so dead. What? Holy suckins! Oh, it's my baby! Suck and drag, girl! And what's this? Oh, she's giving me the life she just sucked out of Mama Brain. That's my generous little sweetie. Wait a minute. Crap, Mama B ain't dead yet. No, 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 no. Come on, get up, little one. I'm okay. Just think of yourself. Get out of here. You rotting sack of potatoes.
In the name of the slain baby, I bring you death.
Take that. Oh, of course, it's Metroid. Well, it's escape time. At least I can blast through all these gates with this nifty new hyper beam. And of course, I took a detour to save my sensei animals from earlier because I'm a saint that gives back to the community. Afterwards, I sprint back to my ship just in time to avoid impending doom, watch the fireworks, and then spy complete the operation. Both baby and pirates gone alongside Zeebies. The price to be paid for the galaxy's peace.
So, how do I feel about Super Metroid after all this time? Well, obviously nothing can match the power and impact that it had on me through my first experience playing through it. But it's still an incredibly powerful and very strong game overall.
It has a great story, an immaculate sense of atmosphere, iconic music and weapons, and great gameplay that rewards player experimentation. It builds upon its ambitious but flawed predecessors in clever and exciting ways, introducing a bunch of great quality of life features and new abilities. But is it a masterpiece? Well, it's not perfect. The game starts out strong and is a phenomenal experience throughout Criteria, Brinstar, and the wrecked ship, but things really do slow down to a crawl once you hit, say it with me, Meridia. That stinky area takes all the worst aspects of the Metroid series like one-way paths, weird level design, and freaking stuckness, and condenses it into a single area. It's an unfortunate but legitimate stain upon an otherwise fantastic game. And from what I looked at online, I'm not the only person who feels that way. Fortunately, things do pick up again once you get to Norfair, and the ending is absolutely iconic, so it still averages out to be a great time overall. No game is perfect, even my personal all-time favorites like Resident Evil 4. But the real question of whether a game is a masterpiece will always come down to how you feel the highs of the experience, counterbalance or negate any lows there might also be in it. And boy does Super Metroid have some high highs. As an audiovisual and narrative experience, Super Metroid soars, with a surprisingly emotional ending to boot. And from a gameplay perspective, the game's mechanical complexity has lent it flexibility that speedrunners are still enjoying to this day. In fact, it's very difficult to overstate how important the game has been for that community. I think Super Metroid is great. It's not my favorite in the series, and there's honestly 4 or 5 Metroid games that I would sooner pick up and play before it, but it's still a dang fine experience and very worthy of its legacy. Super Metroid isn't a perfect game. It's more than that. It's a legend. And at the end of the day, I think that counts more than anything. I do have one more Metroid game I want to look at with you lovely folks before I pivot over to some other game series that I've been itching to get to. This one's considerably more recent, so stay tuned. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next mission.